All right, so now that you know how to use the event begin play, sometimes you may want to do, let's say, something that spawns actors and in real time, right? So imagine a situation where you are on a game and you have to make it so every time that we destroy one actor, another one spawns, and so on and so forth. So we're gonna create an example of a pooling system using blueprints. So it's gonna spawn this magic cube every 2 seconds, and if it hits the threshold, it's not gonna do anything until we destroy the cube and it spawns again. So we're gonna create an interaction between two blueprints. One is gonna be the spawner, and one is gonna be what you're actually gonna spawn, right? So how do you approach this in Unreal Engine? So we're gonna close this. It's gonna delete my cube, and I'm gonna go back to my main folder here. I'm just gonna create a new folder called dash main. You don't have to do this. It's just something that I like to do to keep it simple, right? Now I'm gonna create a new blueprint, and I am gonna call this BP spawn actor, right? I'm gonna add a sphere. And look what I'm gonna do. This is very important, by the way. I am just gonna drag and drop the sphere to change the parent to be the root. All right? This is very important because I'll show you what happened. So imagine that I have my sphere here. And this is my main object, my main actor. If I do like this on the blueprint, I'm still selecting the actor, but I'm not selecting the sphere. On this case, I want to be the sphere. I want to make it so it's the root of the game object. So the way you can actually do this, I'm just gonna go back here and reset. I'm just gonna drag and drop to be the full parent. Now if I press play, nothing gonna happen. We're just gonna enable physics to make it fun. So we're just gonna go back here and we're gonna search for simulate physics, and you're gonna enable this to true, compile and save, perfect. Now you're gonna press play, and look at that. Now I think you can even push the sphere, and you see you have things kind of running. So what we can actually do here, just to make it a little bit more fun, we're just gonna drag that. We're gonna press play, right? Look at that. So we just make so the sphere can just drag and goes off the map. Now what I would like to do here is that I would like to create a spawner, and that's why we are using event tick, because we can use this that runs every frame, and then on every frame we can actually spawn an item, right? So the way you do this is just using blueprint. You can actually use C++, but let's just focus on here. So I'm going to close this. I don't need this anymore. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to blueprint, and I'm going to create a new actor because I don't have to interact with this that much. I'm going to call this BP spawner, right? This is a very common technique on games like Minecraft, for example, where you want to spawn a mob every X amount of time. So I'm just going to drag and drop this anywhere here. Usually this is going to be the spawn point, right? We're going to open up here the spawner. Oh, I just mistyped. Spawner, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create here arrow, and I can do this with different things. I'm just going to use the arrow to illustrate how usually I would like to do this, and the arrow is going to be called the spawn point. So the thing with the arrow, which is tricky, is that sometimes you may want to spawn where is the arrow point, so you have to move at that, otherwise it will spawn where is here. It's just something to keep in mind. So now what I can do, if I go back to my world, I can see my arrow, right? So I'm just going to rotate this, and now is spawning right here. Now I have a problem. So we need to understand how many actors do we want to spawn, okay? And that's very simple. Basically what you would like to do here is that we're going to create here a max spawn count. This is going to be an integer, and we are going to create, actually just leave as private. Basically, you can create public or private variables here. But what we're going to do here is just don't worry about this. We're going to cover in a new session. After we finish this, we're going to go over through what's exposed on spawn and all those things. And I'm just going to create a new variable called spawned or spawned, right? Right. And also, very useful thing is that how much, what's the interval that we want to spawn this? Do we want to spawn this all the time? Do we want to wait 1 second? How do we want to do this? I'm going to call this spawn rate. I'm going to compile and save. So the spawn rate, I'm going to change to float because I want to use decimals. And I'm going to do every 0.2 seconds or 0.2 milliseconds, it's going to spawn something. Now the max items I want to spawn is 500. So if it hits the threshold, I want to stop, right? And the spawned is just so we can track those and then we can carry on with this. So the way you actually implement this is just that you go to the event tick, right? And the event tick is responsible to do that for us. It ticks on every frame. So it's a very powerful tool, but also very costly. It costs a lot of processing power. So every time you have one of those things on, you have to be aware in terms of performance, right? So what we're going to do is that we are going to call an event called delay. And the delay basically allows us to create here a spawn rate. So what's the rate that we're going to delay? This, right? Now, this is not going to work on itself. We need to do something where it spawns, it waits, and then it allows us to do again. So luckily, Unreal Engine has something called do once for us. Do once. And basically the do once allows us to run this, it freezes, right? And then we can also reset after a while, right? Now what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna, from this completed, we're gonna spawn actor from class. And the spawn actor from class is basically a way for you to spawn items onto your scene, right? Now if you compile and save, you're gonna see that we're gonna have a problem because we do not have a class and we also do not have a transform. That's very simple. The class is gonna be this one, BP spawn actor, right? Now we're gonna compile and save. We're still gonna have an issue. Now we need to get the arrow. We don't have it here because of compilation issues, but we need to get the arrow position into our relative world, right? So how do we do this? So we're gonna drag and drop the spawn point, and I'm gonna get world transform, and I'm gonna drag the pin here, and as you can see, it's connected. Now what's gonna happen is that it's gonna run this. It's gonna spawn the actor. It's gonna wait 2 or 0.2 seconds, and then what would you like to do after? But before we do this, we just need to basically get the spawned, and we just need to do a plus plus, which is increment, right? So we can do it here, right? So we're gonna do this one right there, perfect. And the next thing we want to do here, guys, just to be aware, is that we want to create a branch. And a branch is basically a if. So if this, then do that, else don't do anything. In this case, if our spawned is greater or equal than, let's say, the max spawn count, right? Then what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna plug this value here. In this case, we should do on the false because we want to do the what we call negation. Well, what you can do here is that you can drag the pin and call not boolean, and then what you end up doing is that you revert that order, right? That's it. So now that happened. Now it runs this, it compiles, and then on the delay, what we can actually do, we reset. So now I have a pretty good feeling about this. Let's see what happened into the scene. So it keeps creating new actors and it keeps going on forever. So let's just illustrate with something like 10 for now, because we can kind of count easily until 10. I'm just gonna make sure that my world is back to normal. because I just want to be able to count everything. And now if I press play, look at what happened. So we have, it keeps going, but we should have now 10, and it doesn't go over the balls. Right, so another thing as well that I recommend you doing as well is that every time you don't want to use your event tick, you can disable that. So in this case, what I can do here, and I'll show you how powerful this thing is. I'm just gonna add a print, which is a nice way for us to debug, right? And on the print here, I want to disable the event tick once this is completed. So what I can do is that set tick event enable, and I'm gonna set to disable. And you're gonna see a bunch of hello, and then eventually it stops. And then basically you stop with the spawn, and then the event tick does not tick anymore. And that's basically how you use event tick on your Unreal Engine. Just be aware that this is a very resource intensive task, and I do recommend that every blueprint that does not need to have this enabled, you turn it off. Unreal Engine usually does a good job, but this can escalate very quickly on your game in terms of performance.